Alrighty, we're back. Excusez-moi. So, we're gonna go over the multi-bear, the eldest matriarch. So if you're confused, I suggest you watch the other video. Because this is a follow-up. And I integrate my videos. So, we see this ET individual is a Ursus multiplex, alright? A polymorphic earth sign consciousness. The 12th waning gibbous in Aquarius, the date of intake, undefined year, time loop. And the presenting complaint is uncontrolled head multiplication. The patient has manifested 8 screaming bear heads, each with a distinct personality disorder and a 9th forming at the base of the tail. So we have our astrological etiology. The multi-bear's natal chart, Ford discovered, is not a single chart but a composite of every head. By averaging the times at which each head first roared, Ford constructed a hive bear astrological mandala. Sun in Aries, head number 1, the warrior, is dominant but afflicted by a retrograde Uranus in Scorpio, chaos eruption. Moon is in Gemini, head number 2, the trickster, a duplicitous lunar placement that doubles anything it touches, squared by Neptune, illusory selves. Mercury in Virgo, but in retrograde natal, head number 3, the critic, constant self-complaint loop. Saturn in Leo, head number 4, the deposed king, wounded pride, this head cries tears of royal bitterness. Venus in Taurus, head number 5, the hedonist, demands honey constantly and refuses to participate in therapy. We also see Jupiter in Sag, head number 6, the evangelist. Excuse me. I hate when I talk over my words. It's the worst thing ever. So essentially, head number 6 preaches bear supremacy between roars. Pluto's in the first house, head number 7, the shadow, growls only in dead languages. Ford suspects it knows the date of his death. Chiron's in the 8th, head number 8, the wounded healer, whispers traumatized earth sign nursery rhymes. The 9th gestating head is an unaspected point at 0 degrees Pisces, signifying primordial undifferentiation, the original bear soul lost. Alright, then we look at our diagnosis and we see this is not classic polycephaly, Ford writes. This is a Uranian plutonic fragmentation of the unified self. The multi-bear swallowing too many contradictory identities, Dipper's ideal bear, the Minotaur's rival, the woodcarver's muse, the 10th of telepathy's escaped exhibit, has astrologically shattered. Each head is a dissociated astrological planet. To heal, we must realign the planets into one symphony. So we have our astro-therapeutic intervention. Ford staged a ritual he called the Great Bear Conjunction. Using a stone circle near the crashed alien ship, he positioned 8 mirrors, each inscribed with the glyph of one planet, facing the corresponding head. At the precise hour when the moon transited the composite ascendant, 18 degrees Leo, he played a chord on a theremin tune to the frequency of the Earth's sun, 7.83 Hz, which he claims vibrates the etheric bodies of bears. Each head was directed to roar its truth simultaneously into its mirror. The cacophony shook the forest. The mirror shattered, and the shards, infused with planetary light, flew into the patient's chest, forming a single massive radiant bear head with 13 eyes, one for each zodiac sign, plus Ophiuchus, which Ford insists is real and governs the forest. The 8 personalities integrated into a wise galactic earth sign entity that spoke only in haiku and now protects the mystery shack from astral intrusions. Ford adds, payment was in honey, which Mal the Numberless now accepts only as solar ambrosia in hexagonal vessels. We have case file number 13, the hide behind specimen H1D30, or AQU0. Birth name is unknown, current name is Dr. Nobody. Species is Umbra perpetua, shadowfolk. Date of intake is every day and never, retrograde Mercury in Pisces season, obviously. Presenting complaint is chronic invisibility, hypochondria. Patient fears she has become too visible. and will accidentally be perceived, which for a hide behind is a fatal illness. You get this if you have Mercury in Pisces. Alright, impossible chart. So casting a chart for a hide behind is a paradox. Patient exists only in peripheral vision. Stanford solved this by calculating the anti-scion of the chart of the person she most recently hid behind. One, Reginald Seuss Ramirez, who provided partial consent after being promised a D20 of destiny. Seuss' chart anti-scion renders ascendant in Libra, shadow side of Aries. The hide behind is the diplomat of non-existence. Sun is in the 12th house in Scorpio at 29 degrees, the energetic degree of death and rebirth. Pathological secrecy, the sun literally cannot shine. We see Venus retrograding Capricorn. Self-love is a foreign concept. She cannot perceive her own beauty. Moon in the 7th, exactly opposite Saturn in the 1st. Deep terror of partnership. Hiding behind others is a Saturnian wall between herself and intimacy. Ford discovered that the hide behind constant shifting behind objects is an astrological compulsion. She's trying to find a house cusp where she feels safe, and she never does. Medical astrology of invisibility. The illness is a Venusian heartbreak. Once long ago, a hide behind allowed herself to be seen by a human logger. He screamed, ran, and chopped his own shadow with an axe. The trauma reverberated through the hide behind collective unconscious as a generational Saturn-Chiron opposition. Now, all hide behind suffer from chronic visibility anxiety, a condition where their shadows retract to a pinpoint, leaving them unable to hold form. So the patient's current crisis, she has started to flicker. A faint outline appears even when she is behind something. This is the terminal stage of the disease, called becoming real. In hide behind medicine, this means the soul is attempting to incarnate fully, which the clan considers a religious heresy and a physiological catastrophe. We see the radical occult surgery. So Ford offered a dangerous procedure, electional astrological embodiment. He essentially casts an electional chart to find the perfect moment to force the patient into visibility under a beneficial sky, turning her disease into a portal for a new life. The chosen moment required the following: Moon in Leo, bringing confidence, visibility, performance. Sun trine Jupiter, which is joy and expansion. Venus on the midheaven, public love. Ascendant in Aries, fiery new beginning, but with Saturn safely in a cadent house, no obstruction. So the date fell on the summerween of 1983 during the Time Giant snooze, when the fabric of reality was stretchy enough for shadow to become flesh. At the appointed second, by the lake at dusk, Ford stepped aside. The hide behind stood alone, exposed, trembling. A beam of Venusian light struck her. Her shadow screamed, unfolded, and blossomed into a corporeal form. A tall, silver-haired woman with quicksilver skin and wide, terrified, beautiful amber eyes. She immediately fainted. Seuss caught her. The patient now goes by the name Perry, short for peripheral, and works for as the Mystery Shack's nighttime security guard, a job that allows her to hide in shadows by choice, not by curse. She attends a support group for unhidden entities, run by the ghost of Archibald Corduroy. Ford notes her chart now has an ascendant at 15 degrees Aquarius, the degree of the starseed. She is herself, and she is free. The cost? She can now be hugged. She cries with joy at every hug, which is a Venus and Leo reaction. I consider this my greatest ethical victory. We have our appendix, surviving fragments. This folio contains several mutilated entries, including Case 18, which is the Gnome Megatropolis Collective. Venus in Virgo, epidemic causing obsessive-compulsive beard grooming to the point of collective exhaustion. Treatment, mass Venus talisman bath, but the gnomes attempted to marry them. This complicated matters. Case 22, Time Baby's teething. Medical astrology is useless here. He is his own exoplanet, filed under Let It Happen. In Case 30, Shembulok's curse. Patient is a gnome who can only speak his own name. Chart, Mercury in Taurus, afflicted by a stationary retrograde Pluto in the throat chakra degree. I suspect an ancient Germanic rune spell. The cure involves a complex ritual, but frankly, Shembulok is happy as he is. Medicine must sometimes bow to contentment. Alrighty. Now we have a second volume here. So you definitely want to watch the first video so you don't get confused. Alrighty. So case file 42 is the leprechaun, Larry Glimmerhoof O'Grady. A leprechaun, a queen chimera, heavily inbred with wish magic. And date of intake is the 29th of no sun month during a waxing crescent in Aries that accidentally fell on a Tuesday twice. Presenting with chronic toxic positivity, pathological inability to stop granting wishes, leading to severe metabolic burnout, glitter incontinence, and a horn infection that whispers Nietzsche. Alright, astrological presentation and decumbiture. The leprechaun staggered into the FAMRS clinic. 4:19 a.m. having been awake for 11 consecutive days, trying to fulfill a child's wish for infinite candy. The child was a teenage gnome. The wish went wrong. The candy was alive. So, ascendant 2 degrees Cancer, the breast of the cosmos, Ford would say. Neediness, a desperate maternal urge to nurture the world. Sun at 28 degrees Sag, conjunct the galactic center but retrograde. The leprechaun is a shooting star caught in a backwards loop, endless outward enthusiasm that burns itself out. Mercury at 0 degrees Capricorn, critical degree of the sea goat's ambition, trine a weirdly angular Neptune in Pisces. Illusion, fairy tale. This creature believes its own hype. Mars in the 12th house in Gemini, conjunct Aldebaran. Suppress anger manifesting as compulsive service. The leprechaun cannot say no. Saturn retrograde in Leo, square a stationary Pluto in Aquarius. A deep shame about being too magical, too colorful, too much, so it grants wishes to earn love. Essentially, this chart screams fairy overload syndrome. I've seen this before in the Hank Maniacs seasonal affective disorder. The leprechaun is running on pure, undiluted magic, and its adrenal glands, represented by Mars, are literally sparking. Mabel tried to hug it and got a 3rd-degree glitter burn. Alright, and its diagnosis here. The leprechaun is suffering from a Mars-Neptune burnout complex. The desire to be the hero, Sagittarius Galactic Center, has inflamed its altruism circus to the point of physical self-destruction. Its horn infection, oozing rainbow pus that whispers, if you don't make everyone happy, you are worthless, is a psychosomatic manifestation of a natal moon-Pluto square. The mother wound, fear of abandonment. The horn is its heart chakra externalized. Worse, a transiting Uranus square its natal Mercury is creating a paradoxical wishes. So the last one turned a picnic basket into a philosopher's stone that argued about theodicy. The leprechaun cannot control its output. Treatment protocol here. Tri-phase astrotherapeutic intervention. So Saturnine boundary setting, planetary hours Saturn, Saturday. Forge a tiny Saturn talisman, a lead disc engraved with a circle within a square, tied it to the leprechaun's tail. The purpose is Saturn inhibits, limit says no. The patient must wear it while watching a loop of Grunkle Stan's No Refunds highlight reel. Leprechaun cried for 3 hours and whispered, I don't have to grant wishes. It was the first question it had ever asked. Phase 2, hormonal rebalancing via Venusian herbal tea, a blend of chamomile, moon, Damiana, Venus, and raspberry leaf. Feminine, restorative, steeped in a cup blessed under a waxing Libra moon. Mabel added edible glitter because Venus loves sparkles, not warfare. The tea reduces the magical androgen surge, the wish-making imperative, and allows the horn to drain without Nietzsche quotes. The infection calcified into a small philosopher's kidney stone, which the leprechaun passed with a yelp and then donated to the museum. Phase 3 is ego reclamation through constellation therapy. Dipper projected the leprechaun's natal chart onto the sky using the Shack's new planetarium built from a dismantled alien tractor beam. The patient walked through the projected houses, reliving each planetary womb with Wendy as an astral bodyguard. The 12th house Mars screamed, I'm not your wishing machine, into a pillow shaped like Capricorn. The scream released a flock of spectral candy wrappers. They dissolved into genuine laughter. The leprechaun now goes by Larry O'Grady, self-care coach for Mythic at Queens. Only grants wishes on Thursdays, and only if the wisher signs a legally binding emotional labor agreement. His horn glows a healthy non-whispering coral pink. Suze occasionally hires him for kids' parties with strict union rules. Ford's last footnote on the case: recovered from a sentient mushroom that ate part of a journal. The leprechaun teaches us that altruism born of trauma is a poison with a pretty wrapper. I once met an alternate dimension Larry who wished himself out of existence. This one is luckier. Alright, so before we continue, just trying to make sure here. Alright. So just wanted to go over a few more of these case files. So 47 is the ghost of Archibald Corduroy. Treating the physician. Alright, so the species is Class V full torso vaporous apparition. Date of intake is every Thursday evening at 8 p.m., but emotionally, 1847. Presenting with spectral decompensation, patient is becoming too transparent, losing corporeal control, and suffering from post-life existential in-the-wife flare-ups, triggered by the recent arrival of his great-great-grandson, who is very alive and very ashamed of the Corduroy lumber fortune. Astral phantom decomposure. So ghosts have no birth charts. Ford solved this millennia-old conundrum by developing the Tenedo astrological ascendant, calculated from the time and coordinates of death, Archibald's chart. So we see ascendant at the time of death, Scorpio, 3 degrees, conjunct the fixed star Zubin El-Genubi, south claw of the scorpion, karmic grasp. He died while being literally clawed by a giant phantom scorpion he defended in a logging land dispute. This is not metaphorical. Ford confirmed it was mostly the venom, but cosmically, the claw is symbolic. Sun, 12 degrees Leo, in the 8th. Archibald was a lumber baron with a dramatic flair, fiery ego, but the 8th sun means his power was tied to death, inheritances, and secrets. In life, he cut down a sacred grove of whispering pines. In death, the pines whisper his guilt back at him. We see Moon at 25 degrees Pisces conjunct the black moon Lilith. Bottomless guilt, a desire to dissolve into the ether. His emotional body is literally a fog of self-reproach. Saturn in Virgo in the 10th, the guilty conscience of an industrial patriarch. Saturn here means he's chained to his legacy of deforestation, unable to move on because he's responsible. So currently transiting Pluto's conjunct his natal Saturn, a once in an afterlife orb of forced transformation. The ghost must confront his lineage's crimes or fit into a class 0, whispering wallpaper stain. Right, we diagnose Archibald's increasing transparency. It's a Pluto-Saturn dissolution crisis. His ectoplasmic guilt is literally erasing him. When he tried to apologize to a sapling, it wilted out of spite. His support group for unhidden entities has become a support group for him. Wendy, his descendant, has mixed feelings. I mean, he's a ghost and a capitalist, but he's also a corduroy. We don't abandon family, even if they're made of regret fog. So yeah, these are just conceptual case studies, astrologically speaking, for cryptid characters. Obviously inspired by Gravity Falls. I did quite a bit of them, so I'm just trying to figure out where I left off here. Oh, I was gonna actually do like crime astrology too. It's like astro-criminal justice. I should probably take this name out. I don't want to get copyrighted. I'm scared of it. Some of my other videos have dealt with that. So, anyways. I had lore and everything. So we'll just jump into it. The first case file is a silent siren of Lake Gravity. And what we're going to do here is show you crime astrology close up. So the crime itself, we see on the night of July 14th during a Venus gibbous moon in Aquarius. The lake gravity siren, known as Melisande Fairstream, was found floating unconscious in a rowboat, her vocal cords magically cauterized by a sigil etched into her throat. The sigil was identified as the glyph of Mercury retrograde combined with the rune for Be Silent. Melisande had been the prime witness in an upcoming fraud trial against one Thaddeus Thad Glome, a former tent revival preacher who sold blessed water that was actually just lake runoff infused with gnome glitter. The silencing was precise. Melisande could breathe, eat, and hum, but whenever she attempted to form words about Thad's fraudulent activities, her throat would seize, and the sigil would glow a deep, mocking violet. She was rendered mute as a witness, and the fraud case was on the verge of dismissal. Sheriff Bloobs declared it spooky and deputized the ACIB. Alright, so first we look at the decumbiture of the crime scene. So, we cast a chart for the moment the crime was discovered. It's like 11:42 p.m. when a fisherman found her. Alright, you see ascendant is at 2 degrees Pisces conjunct the fixed star sheath, extreme misfortune, but also secrets revealed through water. The ascendant ruler Jupiter was in the 12th, hidden enemies in Taurus, an exact square to Mercury and Leo, the throat voice. So what's immediately indicated here is a Jupiterian figure, a preacher, a conman, attacked her voice, Mercury, out of fear of exposure. The square is a classic signature of silencing through an abuse of authority. Jupiter equals preachers, judges, and inflated egos. Horary interrogation. Who cast the hex? So we erect a horary chart at the moment the question was formulated in the mind. 6:17 a.m. Who silenced the siren? Alright, we see ascendant is at 18 degrees Virgo, of course ruled by Mercury, which is retrograde in the 4th end of matters in Capricorn. The culprit was someone whose chart was heavily afflicted by this retrograde. We see the moon, significator of the victim, was in Gemini in the 10th, public reputation screaming to be heard, and Moon's next aspect was a square to Neptune in the 7th of open enemies and partners. Suggested the attacker was a known associate, and deception, Neptune, was the weapon. The 7th cusp was in Pisces, Neptune ruled. The attacker was a Piscean figure, someone who uses illusion. That Glome had a Pisces stellium. So, then we look at the natal chart of the suspect. Obtained from a forged baptismal certificate. The real one was printed on a prayer cloth. It's a long story. So, we see natal sun, is in Pisces at 22 degrees, and it's conjunct Mars at 26 degrees Pisces in the 10th. A magnetic conman with a messianic complex. Alright? Mercury's in Aquarius at 15 degrees in the 9th. Gifted speaker, but squaring Pluto and Scorpio from the 6th. Deep-seated need to control narratives capable of occult harm. What's most damning here is his natal Mars is exactly square to transiting Mercury retrograde that occurred on the night of the crime. In Mars retrograde, innocent cannot cast a Mercury curse. That's Mars was activated as the malefic instrument. Right, forensic horary versus natal synastry. So, the crime scene chart showed Uranus, which is sudden attack, conjunct Thad's natal Mercury. His own Mercury, speech, was afflicted by the transiting Pluto, and he projected that affliction onto Melissande's voice. His motive was clear. She was a water sign, Cancer sun, and his Mars in Pisces opposes her Mercury in Virgo. He always felt intellectually inferior to her clarity. The hex was a direct, astrological attack on her natal Mercury placement. We have astral evidence admitted into court under the Weirdness Exception Act. Yes. The following celestial evidence was entered. So, Exhibit A, the crime scene decumbiture chart showing Mercury under siege. Exhibit B is horary chart of whodunit indicating a Piscean 7th culprit the Mercury-Neptune signature. Exhibit C, Thad's natal chart with transits for the night of the crime, demonstrating the exact Mars-Mercury square activation. Exhibit D is a photograph of the sigil, which matched an ancient Mercury binding spell found in a grimoire that had purchased at the Tent of Telepathy's estate sale. So this judge accepted the charge as circumstantial evidence pursuant to the precedent of False v. Morningstar, where a man's soul was successfully entered as an exhibit. So we have the trial. Alright. So, essentially, the courtroom was the basement of the courthouse, retrofitted with a retractable roof so the planets could watch. The jury of 12 was selected via electional chart. Each juror's natal chart was cross-referenced with a trial date to ensure fairness. No one with a natal Mars-Saturn square, as they might be overly punitive, and at least 3 air signs for objectivity. Let me see. Our prosecution's astral argument, Pacifica Northwest. It looks like the cosmos does not lie. The stars recorded the moment Melisande Fairstream's voice was stolen. And we have the fingerprints of the heavens. On the night of July 14th, the transiting moon was exactly quincunx Mr. Gloam's natal Neptune, an aspect of psychological manipulation. Transiting Saturn was sitting on his ascendant, bringing his hidden crimes to light. The universe itself has indicted him. You've seen the charts. You have heard the expert testimony from Mr. Pines. The evidence is written in celestial fire. They say, "Objection, Your Honor. The defense submits that the prosecution's chart interpretation is, afflicted by a Taurus moon bias. My client's natal Mars in Pisces is a martyr placement. He's not a hexer, he's a healer. He was trying to help that siren find inner peace. Silencing sigil was a meditation aid. And besides, the horary chart was cast at 6:17 a.m., but Mr. Pines hadn't had his coffee yet, which, under the rule of Pines v. Gnome, invalidates divination performed under caffeine deficiency." Our verdict here. Well, we have the jury, which is current transiting Sun trine their composite Jupiter, deliberated for exactly 1 Saturn hour. Thaddeus Gloam was found guilty on all counts. Sentencing was scheduled for the upcoming Venus retrograde, period the bench considers ideal for introspective consequences. He was sentenced to restitution of voice via a Mercury talisman forged by Zeus, 500 hours of community service cleaning the lake's magical runoff, and a permanent astral injunction forbidding him from owning grimoires or operating a tent. His natal Mars was symbolically bound by a Jupiterian oath, sworn under a Libra moon. He's now a certified transparency auditor for the town's water quality. So, Melisande Fairstream's voice was restored via a vocal cord tincture of moonflower in the Venus trine Mercury transit. She sang at the next court session, and her testimony in the fraud case was recorded as the first astral deposition in GF history. That's what I'll say. Alright. And then we have a few more, I think. Alright, so case file 4 in this series is the murder of the time-born twin. Alright? You have a crime here. It says on the 32nd of October, a day that only exists in GF every 13 years, Identical twin sisters Calendula and Calypso were found in the Mystery Forest. Calendula was dead, aged suddenly from 19 to 90 in the span of a minute, her body a husk of temporal displacement. Calypso was unharmed but screaming that she didn't mean to steal her time. The Time Baby, in his giant floating crib of judgment, declined to intervene, stating this was a mortal chronological crime, and thus under local jurisdiction, Sheriff Bloobs, looking tired, handed it to ACIB. Astral Forensics Investigation. We look at the twin paradox in astrology, first off. So the sisters were born at the same moment, same location, but Calendula was delivered first, Calypso 3 minutes later. Their natal charts are nearly identical. We see one of them has Sun at 29 degrees Gemini, the critical degree of duality, Moon in Aquarius at 15 degrees, and Ascendant at 0 degrees Cancer. And the only difference is Calendula's ascendant is 0 degrees Cancer exactly. Calypso's is 0 degrees 11 Cancer. So this 11 arc minute, difference in astrochronology is the threshold of selfhood. They were astral twins with a 1 degree disparity in the ascendant, meaning Calendula was the older sister, the elder, by a sliver of cosmic time and by a sliver of identity. Decumbiture of the death moment. The death occurred at the exact moment when the transcendent Ketu, the drainer of light, crossed Calendula's ascendant, while transiting Pluto was exactly conjunct Calypso's ascendant. Classic case of astral life force siphoning. So the chart showed Venus, which is the ruler of the ascendant in Cancer, intimate bonds in Scorpio in the 5th, squaring both ascendants. Sisters have been involved in a ritual, a shared birthday wish to always be together. The wish, made under a malefic fixed star, became a curse. Alright. Horary. Was it murder or was it an accident? So we cast a horary at the moment the body was found. And we see ascendant at 21 degrees Scorpio, death, mystery, rulers Pluto and Aquarius in the 4th of endings, and the part of death fell exactly on the midpoint of Calypso's natal sun and Pluto, indicating that her unconscious Pluto was the agent of the event. The moon in the 7th of open enemies, but also partners, was applying a square to Saturn. This showed a karmic debt, not a premeditated murder. It was a temporal accident, triggered by an imbalanced astral dynamic. And